is Dr. Shahrzad Nouravi. I'm a business psychologist, and I spend most of my days talking with my clients about purpose and values for both their personal lives and their businesses. Today, I'm excited to introduce my 6-part series on purpose and values. My first video will be about 5 keys to thriving and living a purpose-driven life. My 6-part series is going to share wisdom from around the globe, including Raison D'etre, which is how the French say the reason for being, and I'll share some keys on how we could tap into that. I will talk about Le Plan de Vida, and that is how Costa Ricans talk about what is your purpose on this earth and in this life. I will also talk about Ikigai, and that is how the Japanese talk about your reason for being. I will also talk about hope and refer to Spes la Ultima Dia, that is the last goddess of hope, and how that plays into us living our purpose. And last, I will conclude this 6-part series by talking about eudaimonia, which is flourishing, and as Aristotle described, a life well lived. During COVID, I was asked to give talks about the subject of purpose and values. And the reason was we were all in a new world. All of a sudden, the world that we knew had changed. There was so much pain in the world, and there was also time. And people had a chance to rediscover who they were, what their family life was and what they would like it to be, who they were at work. And as I spoke with leaders, there were certain themes that I discovered in terms of how they were tapping into their purpose and values. When I introduced the subject, purpose and values, it does not mean you have to start by changing the world. It starts with small steps. It starts with discovering what is important to you in your life. What is going well? What would you like to see different? As I worked with leaders, I learned that some of them had a very strong perspective on the pandemic, and they shared, we will not only survive, we will thrive. And that perspective of thriving is so important to think about as you take a look at your life, as you think about what things are going well and what things could be different. Some people during the pandemic lost weight, some people improved their relationships, some people learned a new way to work, and many companies were able to thrive because they were agile and in touch with their employees. What I want to share in this series is knowledge from around the globe, and my hope is it will inspire you to see if there's a new area that you want to work on in your life. So here are 5 keys to thriving. Number 1, and I've talked about this in many of my videos, create a growth mindset. When you have a curiosity about a particular topic, follow it, read up on it, ask people about it. There's a short, powerful book by the author Elizabeth Gilbert named Big Magic. In this book, she talks about following your creativity and your curiosity, being a lifelong learner. For those of you who don't know this author, she wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love, and that became a movie starring Julia Roberts. This movie describes Elizabeth's journey as she explored the world and met a gentleman who she fell in love with. She shares in the book that as she had met the gentleman and they were seeing each other and they were in love, she asked him, "Can I share our story?" And he says, "I'm not so sure, I'm a private person." And she said, "Listen, I've written 2 other books, no one reads it, they're not big sellers, it really wouldn't be a big deal." And she was following her interests, her purpose, her values, her value of wanting to be self-expressed, of sharing stories with the world. And lo and behold, a lot of people did read it. It became a bestseller, and it became a movie starring Julia Roberts. And the purpose of the story is she had a growth mindset. She wanted to do something because it was her passion, it was interesting, it was something that she thought people would learn from. And so the first step of create a growth mindset is what contributes to these marvelous things that could happen in our lives when we're just open and curious. The second part of living a purpose-driven life, in my opinion, is to create community. And a lot of you have community that you can be a part of as structured groups, whether it is in your workplace, whether it's a hobby you have, whether it's around your children's activities. I have a lot of friends and colleagues whose children play sports, and they often do well and then have to travel for those sports, and so that becomes someone's community. But if you're in a place in your life where at this time you're seeing you could use more community, what I would like to share with you is you can create that. You can invite people over, and whether it's a book club, whether it's around a certain area of interest, and create that community yourself. You don't have to wait for others, and it leads to a purpose-driven life. The third key to thriving is identifying your talents. So some of them might be very obvious based on the field that you've chosen, and if you are really feeling in the flow when you do your work, when you perform your work, it shows that your natural energies and talents match the skill at hand. And if you're curious if there's talents you have that you're not tapping into, one way of identifying your talents is through assessments. And there's an assessment that I recommend named Strengths Finders, and you can find it online, and there's 2 versions. And the Strengths Finder assessment has 34 different competencies, and based on the responses you give, you can learn what are your top strengths from the top 5 all the way to the bottom. And one of the assessments will just give you your top 5, and the other one, which costs a bit more, will give you all 34. And I like that one because it's so interesting to see what's at the bottom. What are the areas that are not natural energies and natural strengths? And if you have to perform work in those areas, this can tell you how maybe you could use some support. Maybe you can have other people help work on this because it is not even near your top 5. So the third key to flourishing was identifying your natural energies using a strengths assessment. The fourth key to flourishing is to identify your talents. And this could include looking at what you're doing well in your work and in your community, but it could also be asking others, what else do you see me doing? What have you imagined me doing that maybe you haven't told me about? For example, there was a period of time, a good chunk of time, where I was engaged in community work, and several people said to me, you should run for mayor, you should run for city council. And they saw me in a role of civic engagement beyond what I was doing, and I never would have thought about that. I don't plan on running for office anytime soon, but they did plant a seed. I was recently spending time with a friend at a networking group, and it occurred to me that she would be an excellent group leader. So I planted a seed for her. I wrote a note that said, on this day, and I wrote the date, I recommend that you become a group leader. I see it, and I will support you. And I signed my name, and that was my way of planting a seed for someone who I see as having a lot of talent and capability to create community for others, because I've seen her doing it in other settings. And so I put it out there. So when you ask someone to share what they see that you're capable of that you haven't thought of, it's also important to share that with others, because we are planting seeds in this life and it could make a huge difference. And last, the fifth key to thriving is to explore what interests you and what excites you. And this could be simply going to a class that you're interested in, whether it's in art, photography, an instrument, music, a sport, improv, acting, and just see what happens, see who you meet, see what unfolds. Oftentimes we don't even take that first little step, and when we do, there might be a whole world waiting for us. A client at one of my workshops recently said that she was interested in dance, and the voices in her head were telling her, that's so weird for you to sign up for a dance class and go by yourself. What are you doing? And guess what? She decided that she was going to go anyway and check it out. And she followed her curiosity. And what she found was she loved it. And in the process of becoming engaged in this dance class, she has not only built new friendships, and built community, she's now learning a new skill, and she shares that she's obsessed with it. And how exciting is that, to create an opportunity for ourselves where we could do something that excites us and is new and different for us. And when we do these things to flourish, we have a well-balanced life. We create balance where if we don't, we can end up working so much. And in my book, A Powerful Culture Starts With You, I talk about the esteem portfolio and how it's so important to ensure that you are spending your time getting your esteem, not just from work, but from other areas, whether it's family, community, sports, hobbies, reading, spending time with your children's sports. And we can miss these opportunities if we become too involved in any one thing, especially around work. So I encourage you all to take note of these 5 keys for thriving. Think about what's one new thing you'd like to do. Please feel free to subscribe, to like, or get in touch. Thank you so much.